All right, very good. Thank you, Tom. Welcome, everybody, to the regular Board of Ed meeting, August 27th. Welcome back. I hope everybody had a healthy and happy summer. Just real quick, some housekeeping. In accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975 announcement, I wish to announce that the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the School District of the Chatham's Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, place thereof posted at the Board Administrative Offices, the clerks of the Chatham Township, the Chatham Borough, the Library of the Chathams, the Chatham Courier, the Daily Record, the Star Ledger, and TAP. Mr. DeCola, would you mind taking attendance?
Yes. Mr. Milford. Hello. Mr.
Here.
Hart.
Here.
Ms. Chambers.
Yep.
Ms. Chicarella.
Here.
Ms.
My
Clark.
founder.
Here.
Ms. Kenny. Mr. Ryan.
Here.
Mr. Valenti and Ms. Weber.
Here.
7 present in attendance.
Excellent. If you're able, please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very good. I have no opening comments at the moment, so we're going to pass the baton right over to you, Dr. LaSousa, for your superintendent report.
Thank you, Ms. Weber. I will begin by reminding everyone that in anticipation of our move physically over to the high school, whenever the addition there is completed sometime this fall, we plan to host or conduct all of our Board of Education meetings at the high school in the library beginning in September. We've arranged for Connor Henderson to film those meetings and stream them out with some equipment that we have at the high school to both borough and township residents. I want to thank Tom Salvis, who has been the only person, I think, who's recorded our board meetings to this point. Tom's terrific. He has been a resident for a long time. He's had kids go through the schools, and I know that every time I forget to send him a presentation from a board meeting, he reminds me by 7 a.m. the next day so that he can turn around the video quickly. And it's been a pleasure to work with Tom over the past several years as he's filmed our meetings. So thank you, Tom.
Well done. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Tom.
I also enjoyed your Saving the Swamp photos from the documentary. Well done.
Our enrollment in July, when we had our meeting here, was right about 4,100 students. We're up to 4,119 as of today, and that should be about where we are when the school year begins, though we always have some folks who may withdraw or may register from now until school kind of gets officially going at the end of next week, beginning of the week after that. I think we're fully staffed at this point with regular full-time employees, full-time teaching staff rather. We do have some leave replacements that we're still working on. Beth is working with our principals and supervisors on ensuring that we're fully staffed and ready to go. But I think we're looking pretty good for September as of now. We do have some last-minute movement, resignations, and folks we're trying to bring on to coincide with the 60-day separation notice that folks have to provide if they're working in another district now or if they have given us notice that they plan to leave us. So we're sorting all of that out and hoping to be in a solid place a week from this Thursday when kids come back. I wanted to mention that I did attend a 4-day training sponsored by the Department of Education on school safety and security. I will be speaking more about this at upcoming Board of Education meetings, but just to provide a little bit of context, the summer after the Sandy Hook school massacre, the legislature established a task force to study issues of safety and security in schools. That task force was comprised of Department of Ed officials, Department of Homeland Security and Preparedness officials, and law enforcement experts. And they took about 2 years. They went to Connecticut to meet with folks there. They looked at schools in New Jersey and issues in New Jersey. And after 2 years, they issued a report that's available on the Department of Education website. The report contains a whole host of recommendations, and many of those recommendations have been codified via legislation since 2015 when the report was published. So, for example, one of the recommendations in the report is for the legislature and the governor, and at the time it was Governor Christie, to enact statute that required every district to appoint a school safety specialist, and also require that school safety specialist to attend training like the one that took place this summer. So you'll see on our agenda, we have the appointment of me and also Marco Fryer as school safety specialists. The training included a whole substantial amount of other material, ranging from gang awareness training to bomb incident and swatting responses to active shooter, of course, and all kinds of stuff. And there was a prosecutor from Ocean County there. There were a lot of law enforcement folks, state police, et cetera, et cetera. I do want to mention that an entire afternoon of the 4 days was devoted to Class 3 officers. The recommendation of the task force was to have police present in every school building in the state of New Jersey. The experts there, and a couple of them were from the Association of School Resource Officers statewide, made it very clear that including a Class 3 police officer, which was another product, a legislative product of the task force report, is very much a smart and practical way to improve the safety and security of a school facility. So since that training, Marco Fryer and I have met. We've debriefed, compared our notes. We also met with Chief Gibbons and Lieutenant Miller in the township. And we've just kind of opened up a more robust, detailed conversation about what a Class 3 officer, what that would look like, what kind of activities that person would perform in the school setting. I've also been in contact with a number of other superintendents because this is gaining hold. There are many districts that already have police present. Those that do not, most of them that I'm talking to are moving towards having police present, including a number that are doing so beginning next week when kids come back. So I just want to make you aware of that, be transparent and explicit that the training was substantive and worthwhile, and there's no question that one of the takeaways was a more careful consideration of Class 3 law enforcement officers.
Was it a careful consideration or a strong recommendation from?
It was a recommendation.
And you had mentioned that we were going to bring in some, Captain Miller?
Lieutenant Miller and Chief Gibbons.
Okay, and they're going to come in to speak to our meeting?
Yes, and they can answer questions. They've been in communication with police chiefs and other personnel in other municipalities that have worked with the schools to enact Class 3 officers or deploy them into the buildings. They can answer the kinds of questions that I maybe can't, since I'm not a law enforcement person. But we always correspond on a regular basis. They're willing to work with us. If our Board of Education were to decide to move in that direction, they would do what they could to support us in trying to make sure that our students and staff are safe.
Go ahead, Michelle.
I'm sorry, do we have a date when they are coming to our meeting? Have you set a date with them?
We tentatively looked at and thought that October 1st would work for all parties. So tentatively that would be the date. And once that's double, triple confirmed, I'll make that announcement and make it clear.
The sooner we can get them in front of us, I think the better. Thank you.
And Mike, real quick clarification. So the Class 3 officers are employees of the town, of the police department, and they report to you?
No, they report to the Chief of Police.
Gotcha.
The chain of command is through the police. We did discuss when we met what kind of input our principals and I would have if there was an issue, a concern about one of the officers. Our police departments are terrific. They're collaborative. They would certainly involve us in decision-making and evaluation of how things are going when it comes to the personnel that they would put in the schools.
And just one more thing, the same level of background check and, if we were to hire a new hire, there's certain things that go into place in terms of screening that person. I would assume the same thing would be in place for a Class 3 officer, even though they are not hired by the school district. Would they be held to the same standard of, hiring practice in terms of background checks, any type of history, so we would need to know about.
I'm sure they would be. That's a better question for the chiefs, because I don't know how extensive. I imagine actually law enforcement background checks might be more extensive, but I don't know that definitively, so I would want them to answer that.
I just think it's working in an environment with minors, day to day, sometimes it is different.
Any person who plays the role of Class 3 officer must go to school resource officer training, which is a very specific training regarding juvenile, community policing, juvenile issues, all things that would revolve around working with younger people in schools.
Okay, thank you.
I can ask this of Lieutenant Miller and Chief Gibbons when they get here, but I would also like to know their vision of when there's nothing emergent or there's not a response. Is this going to be more of a community kind of outreach? They're understaffed. They can't get around to all the schools all the time. They're in the schools often, but to foster a relationship with the students early on would be certainly beneficial, so that they're not afraid of them when they see them in the rearview mirror with the lights flashing. So that's something we've never been able to really foster inside the schools. So I would be curious to, and you could, forewarn them that I would
Sure.
ask that. I'm curious how the community outreach portion of that would go, and do the Class 3 officers know that that's part of the job?
We did discuss that. I'll let them answer better than I can, but they were adamant, both of them, that the school district's relationship with the police and how we deal with issues when we need to call the police, whether it's to investigate something or we have some kind of concern, wouldn't change. That the role of this person would be unique to community-based policing, establishing relationships so that they can be proactive in gathering information, being viewed as a resource for students, and being a presence that reassures everyone in the school that they're a little bit safer because the police are there. They both felt very strongly they would never want to see an oppositional or antagonistic relationship develop between a resource officer placed in the school and the students.
I have a question. Would it be possible to get a vision from the chiefs on what the potential tactical responses might be to an event? Or, I mean, that's something they may want to discuss with us in executive session.
I think so, yes.
Okay, thank you.
One last question, and while they're certainly going to be trained and have professional training on certain aspects of their job, are they going to have input from the principals and from you about soliciting what you think you would like to see, how often the officers roaming the halls, patrolling neighboring schools versus, yeah, he sits in that office over there? Because that might not be the most useful thing, and I'm not sure I would like something like that. I would like something like the former.
Again, the chain of command is through the chief of police, but when we spoke, both Chief Gibbons and
Very
Lieutenant
friendly,
Miller
very
were very collaborative, open to working together and ensuring that there was input from multiple places to best utilize these folks. Again, if the Board of Education were to want to move forward with it.
Thank you, Mike.
And is it just a year-to-year contract? Let's say
Yes.
it was, okay. So if we needed to end a relationship, it's within our power to end a relationship, even though they do the hiring.
Yeah, they mentioned to me the term of contract when they appoint someone that it's a year. I don't know what the notification provisions are, if it, or I'd have to defer to them about how they deal
Okay.
with a situation in which they have to remove someone from an assignment.
Okay. To Sal's point, if you have somebody sitting, in an office, closed door, or arms folded and scaring students or antagonistic.
No,
that's
not the
gonna-
goal.
That would not really work. I just want to make sure that we have the authority to end a relationship as well. Other than, not funded.
Right.
But that might take us through the rest of the year. If it's funded up front, who has the authority to terminate?
Mhm.
I'd like to get that ironed out as well. I mean, I don't envision it, but, you never know. Go ahead, Mary, sorry.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because one of the things I actually spoke to Dr. Souza about this, like, we would definitely have the people that the Class 3 officer interacts with get involved in, like, the review process and helping to form the scope of work and meeting and setting goals and all that. Would we be able to be, or would our administration be able to be a part of that? Like, it seems like you're establishing that with the chiefs. Would that be something that you would be able to continue?
I think so, based on how our conversation went initially with the chiefs. So that's it for my report.
If anybody has any additional questions, maybe we can queue them up so that the chiefs are prepared. If something comes to you, this way they can come wholly prepared. I don't want to blindside anybody. I want to make it as effective as possible. So if you do think of questions, either funnel them through Dr. Souza or Mr. Valenti, who's spearheading this for the board. So, either one. But this way we don't have to blindside them, and they can be as prepared as, as they can be. So if you have any additional questions, something comes to mind, don't hesitate. Maybe just send it along. We don't need an immediate answer, but maybe just be prepared to answer it on October 1st so that everybody can hear the answer.
The only other item I almost forgot, we have a Finance and Policy Committee meeting scheduled for Wednesday night, but I think I reversed them in the board memo versus how they initially were published. I don't have a preference if we do finance first and then policy.
Do you still need a policy on Wednesday?
I think we do. We have enough
Okay.
policies to work through and continue
I
working
may
on.
have to bag on Wednesday. I'm not sure. I may have to be in the city, but
I could fill in.
is it a big agenda?
It's good. There are a few items.
Yeah, I may have a conflict on Wednesday as well.
Okay, then maybe I'll double back with you guys tomorrow. Maybe the Finance Committee might not be able to
Yeah, it's tough.
meet.
Or if maybe you can make it during the day if some of the folks are available during the day. I mean, I don't know your schedules, but
I could do morning, that's
All right, look, I'll
okay.
double back tomorrow and we'll iron out Wednesday night, one way or the other.
Okay, excellent. Staffing update done. Okay, anything else for Dr. Souza? You're good, Mike? Nothing else? Okay, very good. Moving on to the business administrator's report.
Sure. First, I'd like to give a construction update. The projects that we undertook this summer, the roof work at the high school, Southern Boulevard School, and the middle school will all be completed, is targeted to be completed on Wednesday. So it's all, the weather will not be an issue, so those three should be done. If you're thinking, how did we get a middle school project, the Southern Boulevard and high school were included in the budget. The price tag came in a little less than we budgeted, so there was a small section of the middle school adjacent to, over the band room, adjacent to the new addition that needed to be done. So now the whole end of the middle school is all completed. So
Okay.
that will fit into the budgeted funds.
No COs are all done too? The CO for the middle school, sorry.
I'll get to that.
Okay, sorry.
The Lafayette Kitchen, the contractor has done a great job. The final inspections are this week. As we speak, they either, I guess the ancillary tests have should all be completed because they test the whole fire suppression system on all of the hoods. I mean, you would think it was a brand new kitchen. It looks really that good. The floors come out incredible, and the walls and the new appliances look great. So that's ready. The inspections are this week, so that's ready. Should be ready for the start of school. The southern restrooms, the final inspections are this week. The bathrooms are definitely much improved and look great. They again should be ready for school this week. At the middle school, at the Milton Avenue School, we ran into a slight problem. When the contractor called for the final inspections, it was discovered that the K&M, which is the construction company, the site supervisor failed to call for some required building inspections over the 3 or 4 month period. This morning, Mike and I, as well as other people from the district, the architect, met at Madison with the Madison administration and the building inspector. The contractor is working out a plan to satisfy all of the inspector's requirements so that he will be able to certify the building as built according to code and specifications. With the timing of what we learned today, we're hopeful that this should be done by the end of the week. If that's the case, we will have our CO and able to use the 4 new rooms, and I'll keep you updated on that.
And Mike, what's the plan if we don't get a CO for the first day of school? Is there a plan?
The TCO?
Yes, we have thought out the rescheduling of the classes that would be in there. It would be inconvenient, but we would shuffle some people around and displace a couple of teachers and put them kind of in a traveling situation. And
They can't award us a TCO?
No.
we're working on it.
With Madison officials? I mean, this is outside this is state, so why are we in
Yeah, but
Madison?
the
Madison
The
handles.
Chatham
Building
Township has its
department.
own building and engineering department. Chatham Borough contracts with Madison for shared services. So all of the building inspections go through Madison.
The Madison people were terrific this morning, and they told us that they would come out to the site whenever we needed, and they would do everything they could to make sure that we can work through this before students start next Thursday.
Through follow-up with the contractor today, the contractor is going to be doing work necessary to prepare the building for the tomorrow, and the Madison building inspectors are coming sometime Wednesday
Okay.
to look at certain things, and there's other third parties coming to certify that the building was done in accordance with the plans.
Is there anything in the contract, you know, to penalize the contractor for not meeting their obligations along the way? I mean, we have to get it done, so we want to get it done, but is it just like, okay, I feel like this is.
All of this additional expense that has to be done in order to, I guess, go back and supply information to the building inspector is on the contractor's issue. So that's all subject to the contractor and his expense. If for some reason we don't, the contract had a separate, substantial completion date by, I'll go back and say August 20th, without looking at the documents. The contractor was supposed to be done and the district was supposed to occupy the facilities. If we can't occupy the facilities for the start of school, then we can look into asserting damages.
That is a hardship, so I
Will
want you to
be.
pursue that if you can.
Getting back to, keep going, since, Ms. Weber asked, the contractor at the middle school has done a fantastic job and has worked 6, sometimes 7 days a week to ensure that the building is done. He had a bunch of inspections on Thursday, Friday, and more inspections this week. And the building is ready. As a matter of fact, the furniture is getting assembled Wednesday. A lot of it has been delivered. There will be some minor site work that still needs to be done, but those classrooms are set to be occupied come next, Tuesday by the teachers and then next Thursday by the staff.
And the CO is in hand? I'm sorry, Peter, if I misunderstood
The
that.
CO, the set of final inspections was today and, tomorrow and this week. He had a whole list of inspections,
Okay.
all scheduled and set to be done. And basically, we found out about the Milton issue Thursday morning. One of the first things we asked the contractor Thursday afternoon at the middle school construction meeting was, did you do all your inspections, do you this? And he looked at us like we had 3 heads saying, what are you talking about? Of course I did them all. I have to do them in stages, otherwise you can't do anything. So.
Apparently you can.
The high school auditorium, I don't know if anybody has wandered around the high school, looks terrific and amazing. The only caveat is we do not have seats, but we do have a temporary CO so that the lobby can be used and the stage and all of the new sound system, can be used, so that play practice can resume whenever they would start. Unfortunately, the contractor has not been able to supply the anticipated delivery date of the new seats. But the new seats have been ordered from a different vendor. They match the specifications of the original ones we ordered, so we're just waiting to find out when our seats will be coming in.
Any idea, or?
When's the first time we need them?
November the plan.
We really would like to have them by October 8th. The high school would like to have them sooner than that because then they can conduct class meetings in there. But October 8th, we have a district-wide professional development day, and we often use that space as the place where we convene. If it doesn't happen by then that wouldn't be the end of the world because we can use the middle school when it's a little bit cooler and it's not hot like it is now. But then the fall play is the 2nd or 3rd weekend in November. So we definitely want it before then, but that shouldn't be an issue. Initially, they thought about 10 weeks, and that was like at the end of July, I want to say, when we ran into this.
We can match here.
Standing meeting.
Just noise.
Standing room only.
So, Peter, just quickly, I know you have either weekly or, bi-weekly meetings with the contractors. Going forward, can we bake it into your operating procedures that you either have our architect or, ask to see the proof of inspections? I know this is rare, I know this never happens, unfortunately it happened to us.
We will at this point, technically, I mean, we have bi-weekly construction meetings, plus the architect makes routine site visits. Even without a construction meeting, we will now know to ask, are all inspections being done, or,
Right, but this guy just flat out lied, so is
No,
there
I don't
some
think
type of proof?
He
Or
lied. The crazy thing is, he did
when he
not,
says everything's fine and the inspections are moving along, to me, that's lying. I don't know how to phrase it, I mean, really, we're missing 6 inspections.
I don't think we specifically asked the Milton contractor, you're doing this, or he'd state, hey, I'm calling for my plumbing and I'm calling for my electrical.
So then our request is that our architect specifically ask that question.
That will be a construction meeting question right at the minute of, every set of, the meeting agenda.
Right, I guess my question is though, if they're unscrupulous and they just tell you what you want to hear, is there some documentation that an inspector provides at each of those fundamental
Yeah,
stages?
we could ask for because they leave like a little, I'll call it an index card, like a
Okay.
little sticker. We can ask for the updated, what proof of the updated stickers, or what, if he says, it's October, I had a September inspection, okay, let me see the sticker.
Okay, that should be part of the architect's plan, at least in our district, that they take pictures of those stickers and put them in their folder.
We will make that a part of the due diligence.
I mean, certainly that should be part of the administrative building and the auditorium going forward.
At the new central office, the roof is completed and the brickwork is about 60% complete. When the brickwork gets finished, the contractor will install the windows, which will then make the building watertight, which will then allow him to do the majority of the interior work. One of the items that we've been battling with is the contractor needs to relocate a water line and a gas line in order before the building can be occupied. So they were supposed to be doing that as soon as they finish the brickwork on one side. The contractor, yes, again, is behind schedule. Their stated completion date is October 29th. We've been after him and beating him up, come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. And we've been pushing him to send more construction workers because it seems I don't know, in my opinion, there's not enough workers on the job. And the architect keeps documenting and pushing them, so. It's the thorn in my side and we keep battling and battling, And it's as much to quite a few people's surprise, it's the one meeting that I consistently lose my temper at, every time we have it every 2 weeks.
I don't know, things work differently where I grew up.
The other good news to report is I didn't comment much about Washington Avenue School, but I was there last week. The custodians have everything polished, shined, and it is ready for the students, and all the other parts of the schools that I've toured that haven't been under construction are all set and ready to go. So we're ready for the teachers this week with MTO, and when everybody comes back next week, and the students a week from Thursday. We're set and ready.
I have a question, Peter. In the beginning of the summer, we were kind of plagued with roofing issues and water leaks and roofs and things like that. Are we all squared away with that stuff at this point?
We are all squared away.
It's been raining a lot, so
We-
you would know, right?
We are all squared away. There was a minor leak at the high school auditorium. I think one of the monsoons we had in the second or third week of August, the architect went and identified it. We had the Tremco come back and identify it, and the contractor had put like some cement on it, but he is going to, I've authorized them to take all the cement back and redo the flashing the way it should be done, so it doesn't look like it's been patched. And that will be done this week. But yes, I've had no persistent leaks.
Yeah, I've been in there pretty much after every rain, and the 2 main spots, there was no water. The construction looks great, thank you, Peter. It looks fantastic. It'd be good if we can get the CO. Any additional questions on the construction? No, all good. Moving on to the committee reports, starting with personnel. Oh, Ms. Kenny's not here. Have they met? Have you met at all?
Personnel has not met.
No, okay,
The 12th, so, yeah, the 12th.
12th of September?
Yeah,
Very good. Curriculum, Ms. Ciccarelli?
we have not met.
Okay.
I don't know when we are meeting. Curriculum,
Same date, the 12th?
the 12th. Okay.
Mr. Gilfillan, Finance and Facilities?
Nothing to report, and we'll know tomorrow when the next meeting.
Okay, very good, thank you. Sal, thank God you're working for the rest of us. Policy and Planning?
Yeah, I'm tired of doing the heavy lifting, thank you.
We appreciate it, though.
We met right before, and we discussed probably a dozen different regulations and policy changes we'll have to make due to some changes in Strauss Esme. Some of these center around HIB, some center around varsity letters, athletic competitions, student smoking, things that we're pretty well far along in and ahead of Strauss Esme to begin with, so it's encouraging. But we're discussing those. We are going to meet again on Wednesday and finish up the work we started today.
Very good.
And were these regulation changes or just recommendations from Strauss Esme? Where they weren't initiated by the administration?
They're not, these are recommendations from Strauss Esme, and we still have to decide how we want to adjust policy if necessary.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a combination. So the state board made changes that then Strauss Esme put in its policies.
Okay.
There were a couple of other areas where we were recommending changes. So it was a mixture, mixed bag.
Any questions for Sal or Mike on any of those items? That's why you're meeting again Wednesday, because you have such a volume? Are you trying to get those in before the school year, or?
As close to the beginning of the school
Okay,
year as possible.
Okay, so probably September 17th?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Moving on to the liaison reports, I'm going to start with the Chatham Borough report. I just want to bring to everybody's attention, maybe you saw it in the papers, maybe you watched the borough meetings like I religiously do, at least in part. And there was some discussion about developing a property down on River Road, which is separate and apart from the Post Office Plaza. And Councilman Weber, please correct me where I go astray here. So it's not related to the Christmas tree construction that we're looking at. It's not related to the skate park construction that the township is considering. It's not related to the Post Office Plaza or the property at the end of Chatham closest to Madison that currently has a dental office on it. So those are all underway, and each of those properties will add students to our district. Now, on top of all that fun, the borough talked about a contractor that is considering putting several hundred units on River Road. I believe the contractor already has approval. There's 3 lots right on the corner across from West East. So the very corner is...
That's 340. That's up and above the 340?
No, this is the 340. So the contractor currently purchased the middle lot, so not the corner, not the one right next to Crown or part of Crown, but the middle lot, and I believe 46 units have already been approved. That developer has approached the 2 adjacent properties, and if they receive approval to develop those 2 adjacent properties, the 3 in a row, one possibility, it's not been approved, it's just been discussed, is to put 340 units on that property. That will put a tremendous strain on the school district. Now, to be perfectly transparent, I understand why the borough wants to do it. They get a tremendous amount of tax revenue. The school district does not get any of that. The borough gets to work into the negotiations, they mentioned it at the meeting, if you want to go back and watch the meeting. They can bake in utilities, they can bake in new sewage, they can bake in widening of roads. So there's a lot of concessions that are granted the municipality that the developer has to pay for. We, on the other hand, don't get a dime of that. We will have to increase staffing, we will have to potentially build additional facilities. Again, it's not final, it's just one proposal, but if 340 units go in and only 1/3 of those have kids in them, and let's just say there's only 1 kid, that's 100 kids in our district pretty much overnight. So nothing to panic about yet, but certainly on our horizon, if there's 340 units in that development, we are going to have to come up with either a plan or just make sure everybody understands that there is no cap on how many kids we can have in a classroom. So it will absolutely rise. Even the number that we used to be comfortable at will have to rise. Because I don't know that we can build enough physical classrooms to accommodate 300 new students overnight. But that's my borough liaison report. I just wanted to put it on everybody's radar. I think it was discussed at the last meeting. If you want to go back and watch it, you can start at about 1 hour and 42 minutes in, is where I believe the fun begins on this particular topic. Does anybody have any questions that I don't know if I can answer,
Yeah,
but
Peter, Mike, do you remember within that demographer's report, they said they focused on one potential build, and their conclusion was they would add 43 students. Which one was that, do you remember?
I don't remember which one. We do have the
That was-
demographer preliminarily scheduled to come October 15th, so after the
He's
police are here.
Focused on the development at,
Christmas
Post
tree
office.
farm? Oh, post office.
I think his analysis, but that was 43
units?
extra students. No,
Oh,
extra
43 students,
Yeah,
I'm
he has
sorry.
a formula, and I forget what if it was that one or one of the other ones, but then you try to put that over 340. And the bigger issue with that one with 340 is the amount of low-income housing, because low-income housing historically does lead to more students per unit than, you know, the stuff that went across or next to True Value. And that contributed very few people to the school district, but they weren't geared towards people with children. They were geared towards older and empty nesters. But this 341, to me, because of the makeup of it, is more dangerous than some of the other developments that are on the docket, just because of the makeup of the units and what historically those units do to a district and who lives in those units. So
And I don't know if there's an opportunity, and we can ask the Borough Council. I understand they can add concessions in or from the developer, but maybe the school district can be considered in some of those. If you add N number of units, we will need additional classrooms. I don't know where we put some of those classrooms because we're physically running out of space. Southern is tapped, can't add anything there. We know that's cost prohibitive. We're literally just running out of space to purchase, to build even classrooms to accommodate it, but it's nothing you need to take action on. It's just something I wanted to bring to everybody's attention so that they realize this is a potential to come down the pike. Oh, sorry, Mary.
No, I just had a quick question. 340 units, would they be condos or rentals or a combo? Do you know?
I
Or is
don't-
is that just the total number?
I think that was the total number. They didn't get into,
Got it.
I think it was, they kept calling it a concept.
Concept, vision.
Vision concept, so it wasn't even, plans that have been submitted. I think the term was concept.
Got it.
Either way, I panicked at the 340. I wasn't panicked at the word concept or vision or,
It's a big goal.
Can I make a couple of quick comments? Number one, it's not just the cost of a building. There's going to be additional teachers, which need benefits, and those benefits rise not at 2% a year, but at a higher rate. These are things, when we're thinking about concessions for ideally the citizenry of the borough is making this known that it's going to affect their housing values and life in the borough and cost of living here, and well, I want to make that well known. Second thing, does this render the demographer's report he's been working on for many, many months, and all of a sudden this throws in a new wrench, and he's going to present to us October 15th. I just think it's wise to let him know of the developments that's come
what I think
from
you're
this
going to
meeting.
see on that, Sal, is we are not going to have contribution from new babies. It's going to be more the transient. So whereby we've always tried to develop things out, looking at a 300 per kid class kind of norm.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the demographer's report, the births in this town are way down, and from what I can see going forward, we're not going to be, going up. And that to maintain that number, we do, you're going to have transients, basically people coming in to move into town for
The schools.
school. So I don't, so we're not going to see probably a massive offset because of the decline in births, but this is a new contribution that, we really have, the demographer's not going to be able to know or understand, but he has a number of different developments within the demographer's report that he's focused on what his contribution could be. So it's understanding what the formula is in terms of what the construction project and what that could potentially deliver. I think what's more important for us to understand is what the borough and the township do when they have increased ratables. Do they take that money, for example, say there are $10 million in ratables, and they develop a new 340 unit facility, and that's going to bring in $2 million in ratables. They can do a number of things with it. They could take their pool of revenue or tax ratables up to 12 million, or they could keep it at 10.4 and decrease taxes, across the board. So as to what they do with the new ratables, I don't know. I don't know what historically that they have done. But from a legal perspective, I think there should be some formula, or we should ask the state to look at this, whereby we move away from that historical fixed revenue figure for the school district, and then when new ratables come up, is that the district is due a portion. We've been on that for a long time. It may be at the point now where, because of where we are, because of what we see now are towns that are built out like ours, and people trying to stretch smaller pieces into larger, additional home units. Where are we from a legal perspective? What are we allowed to ask of increased ratables? I don't know. But that might be where it has to go. If you're getting 2 million and you're going to keep the 2 million, the district should get half. There should be a split. I don't know what the formula is, but the district should be reserve a right, particularly if there's going to be a strain on or increased contribution to the school system. It's not fair for one group to get increased revenues and not share them to the district. That's going to be more strained. Particularly now with the way that these situations work, whereby so much more of the infrastructure costs where the towns used to bear them are put onto the construction and the investor. So,
Right, they're pushed off to the contractor. Okay.
just thoughts.
Just a heads up, more to follow. Okay, so moving over to Ms. Clark for the township.
Just two things that relate to the school district. There's the Walk into Darkness mental health awareness event hosted by the township, and that is going to be on September 22nd, and details are on the website. The township's also continuing their dialogue about the safe school sidewalk initiative, it's like a tongue twister. And that's something that definitely would impact us positively if it was. So, and again, that information is also on the website.
Excellent, thank you. Athletic boosters, Ms. Ciccarelli, I assume there's not too much to report?
Nothing, they have not met.
Okay, moving over to Mr. Arnott for performing arts.
Ms. Weber, I have nothing to report.
Okay, very good. Have you met James, the new performing arts supervisor?
I have.
Oh, you have, okay, great. Maybe he can provide us some notes on what's going on good in the district.
I'll reach out.
Maybe not multiple pages, maybe a few bullets. Chatham Education Foundation, Ms. Kenny's not here. Recreation, Mr. Gilfillan.
Nothing to report.
And PTO District Cabinet.
Nothing to report.
Okay, excellent. Perfect. Moving on, I'd like to make a motion to pass the minutes of the public session for July 16th.
Second.
Was everybody here?
We just needed an abstention from Mr. Harnick and Mr. Wright.
Okay, very good.
It's 5.
1, 2,
Oh, shoot. Is it?
3.
At least 5.
They're 5.
Okay, good. Very good. Mr. Quiller, would you mind?
Sure, the minutes of July 16th.
Yes.
Mr. Gilfield. Mr. Hart.
Abstain.
Ms. Chambers.
Yes.
Ms. Ciccarelli.
Yes.
Ms. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Ryan.
Abstain?
And Ms. Wright.
Yes.
Item passes 5-0.
Excellent, thank you. We have our first opportunity for a public commentary. If you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself, and if you could sign in as well, that would be great.
Hi, good evening. My name is Maureen Kelly. I'm at 67 Mountain Avenue. I have a bunch of questions about this additional state aid. So if I tell you what I'm looking to understand about it, you wouldn't have to answer each one individually, but it occurred to me that there was a past budget earlier in the spring that obviously it seemed like it satisfied everybody when it was passed, that there were people urging everybody to spend up to the cap, and the board said, no, we're happy with the budget the way it is, it does what we needed to do. So now we get the extra 350,000 and change from the state. So I have a couple of questions. I just wanted to know, how does adding that money to our budget affect our cap? And does that mean that in fact your base budget is now bigger for next year, so that next year it'll actually do what all those people wanted you to do, like spending and how close to the cap are you? Very close? I don't know. And I think there's kind of a vague description in the agenda of what the money's going to be spent on. So it'd be interesting to know if it was, one-time expenses for security, maybe cameras, I don't know, versus ongoing expenses that would have to be dealt with again next year. So it's just a vague thing saying, yeah, not much. It was a little bit vague. And just to know whether you expect to get some kind of money from the state again next year. I'm sure you guys may or may not be able to answer that question. We have a new governor. But I just was very confused about how all this fits in to budgeting and how it impacts our cap. And even, do you know, I mean, I know that the school district has an excellent per pupil expenditure. We're actually one of the best in Morris County. And this is going to bump it up. I don't know how much it's going to bump it up by. I mean, we're still a little higher than New Providence and Westfield, but we're really better than most of Morris County. So I just didn't understand how this whole windfall and how it's being spent and what it all means. Thank you.
One second, Matt, I'm sorry. Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Before Matt answers, I just want to make sure, because public commentary is typically, and I should have made this announcement like I typically do, public commentary is generally for the public to make comments, suggestions, you know, some questions, any compliments that they want to throw out are also welcome. But what it can't be, Ms. Kelly, and which I've explained, is can't be a lengthy dialogue back and forth. So Mr. Gilfin is going to answer as best he can because he's the chair of, oh, sorry, Gilfin.
I know, it was a complicated question, but you
No,
didn't
no,
warn me.
It's a very simple answer.
He's a smart fellow, so
Okay.
I just want to see if there's anybody else that has additional
Okay,
commentary
sure.
so you can,
No, it'll take 1 second.
but I don't want it to be back and forth, is my,
No,
Right,
it's fine.
okay.
Okay, you can, it's very simple. Okay, it's nothing to do with our tax cap. Our tax cap is associated with what our taxable property taxes are to the individual homes in our town. If you look at our P&L, basically, which is our revenue line, we have contributions from the tax, which is your property tax. A percentage of your property tax goes towards supporting the schools. And then we have basically what's called an other revenue line. That other revenue line could be all the different things that we get stuff from, you know, advertising, whatever else we do from a district standpoint. And then we get state aid. And if you look at it from a perspective over the last, since 2008, when we were stripped of all of our state aid, we went from what to what, Mike?
About 2.9 to 500,000. call it, or
2.9
400.
million down to $500,000. And since then, we've seen, over the last couple of years, a steady increase. Now, the contribution of that other income, the state aid, does not come from property taxes at all. It's actually a repatriation of all your working income taxes from all the people in this town. So we have, as a town, we have what's called a negative flow of tax dollars down to the state. So our income tax, we send $1 down, we get maybe 60 cents of it back. So what you're seeing is a step up of, in terms of what we're receiving back from the state on an annual basis. So we look at this from a perspective of, we believe, as a school district, we're actually still underfunded, particularly of the quality district versus our peer group. We are dramatically underfunded, and we have foregone in the last 6 years probably $10 to $12 million of state aid that we can't ever recover. So if you look at it from a perspective, what we've always espoused to is trying to keep the property tax and our tax as low as possible. So we don't look at this as a boon back from the state. We look at this as actually receiving or getting back our fair share of the dollars that we send down. In terms of the perspective of what we have finalized its spend on, there are recommendations, but I don't think 100% of it's been finalized, and I do believe that we'll see that over the next couple weeks as we go into the school district. So now it'll have zero impact on your property taxes, and it's just money coming home.
But does it impact the base for the
No,
tax?
because next year,
not at all.
next year it could go down.
Oh, okay.
So we put it into non-recurring items because we just don't know.
Yeah, okay, all right, thank you.
Okay?
Appreciate
thank you, Ms.
that.
Kelly. Any additional public commentary? There's another opportunity at the end if something strikes you in the next few minutes. Moving on to our regular action items. In Ms. Kenny's absence, Ms. Clark, would you mind moving personnel?
Sure. I move action items A1 through 27 and addendum items 1, 6, 7, and 17. Ms. Francis, that seem right?
Yes, although we do have a few on.
Okay, we have audibles, okay, and audibles.
So the first is number 15, page 7, the last item, Helen Oliver, there's just a correction to the location, which should read SDS.
Helen Oliver should say SDS, okay.
And then the other is resolution number 27, page 10 to 11. The last three items are allowed to strike before you.
So 8.7.
Joel, November,
So November, and November,
Owner, Christine, and Christine.
the national, okay, strike.
Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Grant on personnel, including the audibles, which we love? Again, just to remind everybody, the agendas are posted on Friday afternoon, so we look at them over the weekend, and if anybody wants to see them ahead of time, they're there by 5 o'clock. No additional questions for personnel? No? Oh, we,
Second.
I'll do it, that's fine. You guys are getting off your game.
I know. Peter, would you mind?
Sure, agenda items A1 to 27, with adjustments to 15 and 27, addendum items for resolution 1, 6, 7, and 17. Mr. Gilpin.
Yes.
Mr. Arndt.
Yes.
Ms. Chambers.
Yes.
Ms. Chicarelli.
Yes.
Ms. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Ryan.
Yes.
And Ms. Weber.
Yes.
Agenda items passed 7-0.
We're going to move on to finance and facilities.
Yes, Lou, we'd like to move action items B1 through 25 on your regular agenda.
Second.
Second.
And I did just want to clarify that B7 agenda item that Ms. Kelly had asked about. The additional state aid, what we would be looking to do is to return that to the operating budget. So part of the comments that you made have to do with the budget that was passed. Since we passed the budget, we've had to add 2 teachers already because of new enrollments that we experienced in 2 of our schools. So we could use that money to help offset the 2 staff members that we've had to hire. We had some other security items like secure vestibules at all buildings, which is another recommendation of the task force that we scrapped from the budget, if you remember, because we decided to put the money into mental health staff members. So the resolution is open-ended so that we can kind of determine how we can best apply that money to items that maybe we didn't have room to fit into the budget.
Okay. And maybe I know finance keeps a running list of, of needs that many of them get scrapped at budget time just because you can't get everything every year, but, bring that list back up. And I know Matt keeps it in his back pocket all the time, so I'm sure that will come up again as well.
Just 2 donations, one from the PTO of Southern Boulevard, $38,800 to be used to enhance the playground at the school. In the back. The wood chips are going away, or
The grassy areas.
grassy knoll?
Which school?
What a poor choice of words.
And then Washington Avenue School PTO donation of $3,000 for new lines on the blacktops and new trees. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Gilfillan or Peter? Seeing none, Mr. Quill, would you mind?
Agenda items B1 through B25. Mr. Gilpin.
Yes.
Mr. Arndt.
Yes.
Ms. Chambers.
Yes.
Ms. Chicarelli.
Yes.
Ms. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Ryan.
Yes.
And Ms. Weber.
Yes.
Agenda items passed 7-0.
Excellent. Thank you. Moving on to curriculum, Ms. Chigarelli.
I'd like to move agenda items C1 to C7 on the regular agenda. I just want to point out item number 4 that we as a board have approved for the activity participation fee for Chatham High School students to be increased to $150 from $100 as it was previously for this upcoming school year.
I just have can somebody second that?
I'll second.
Oh, perfect, thank you. Just a quick question or comments about the participation fee. Dr. LaSousa, is there a mechanism in place or procedures, and I'm hoping to God the answer is going to be yes, but this additional money can't just be funneled into the athletic programs, just automatically. There's our concern, and Ms. Kenny expressed it several times, and she's not here, so I'm going to speak a little bit on her behalf, but it's also my concern. Marching band, for example. There's a lot of kids that participate, and sometimes that's all they do is marching band. So we're increasing their fee $150 from $100. I want to make sure that there is a mechanism or an avenue if they need a new public announcement system, a new PA system, or they need a new cart. These are items that I've heard that they do in fact need. Is there a mechanism for them to submit a request? And I don't mean like wait a year and a half or 2 years, but if we're increasing activity fees, I just don't want to see it funneled automatically and right into athletics. Because there's a lot of students that only do one thing. Maybe they play in the garage band, and maybe they they belong to the debate team or the chess club, or they do one thing. They don't play 3-season sports. So I just want to make sure it's fair. I'm all on board with the raising the activity fee. I just want to make sure the funds are going to be funneled, to all reasonable requests.
We can certainly do that. The mechanism right now is through our budgeting process, which begins in the fall and concludes at the building and department level probably about December, mid-December, early January. But we can expedite that and talk with our budget managers about certain requests that we can reinvest money into extracurricular programs if we've been, underserving certain activities.
Okay. So for example, the marching band, the PA system, they don't have to wait to submit it in October, have it discussed, and not arrive until, next year sometime, right? There's a way to expedite some of those capital expenditures?
Well, we'd have to approve those, the typical process with the bills list and everything else. Peter can get into the mechanics of that.
There is, depending on the amount of magnitude. If you tell me that a new speaker system is $1,000, yes, we go through measures to find additional money. If you tell me it's $100,000, then most likely it would be a capital item.
Okay.
So it all depends on the magnitude, and
I'll
speak that certain people are not shy about saying, hey, putting in requests, and a lot of the high school activities, all of the staff members go right to Principal Grow, who has kind of like a call, and we discuss what's truly needed. We try to get people what they need in order to continue performing at the high level at all of our charter activities.
Okay, understood. Or at least open communication so that they know they can ask. If they maybe asked in the past and there's no funding, some of this activity fee should go to some of those underfunded clubs. Sorry, Michelle.
Just one last thing, which I am like a broken record, but I think with the increased fee, for families who need assistance, I want to make sure that there is a safe and secure way that they can respectfully ask for assistance as needed without having to go through a lot of different channels. And just one point person, I think you said it was the principal, possibly at each school, and then that their needs can be met, in a respectful way on our end. Thanks.
And I just had a quick question. That activity fee, does that cover all extracurriculars like robotics and all of that too? And does it cover club sports too? So whatever, like if you want to participate in sailing, you pay $150 too. Is that how it works? Like it has to be, okay.
You could be a 3-season athlete on the debate team and in the marching band.
And it's one fee. Got it. Okay, it's not per season. That's what I was trying to figure.
Just
Okay.
one flat fee.
Got it.
You could also just be on the marching band and do nothing else, and you're also paying $150. So that's where I just want reasonable requests to be, considered and vetted, and not bogged down in an annual process. I mean, if it's a $700 cart, it'd be hard pressed to tell the guy or girl, you got to wait 9 months, because that's the rigid process. That's not the case, right? Okay.
Give him the card.
Yeah, again, and I know, I only know peripherally what I'm talking about because all my knuckleheads were 3-season athletes, but I do not want the marching band or performing arts or any of these other activities to not benefit from this increased fee that they're paying for. So, all right, very good. I didn't have anything else on curriculum.
I'll second.
Any additional comments or questions? No? Very good. Peter, would you mind?
Sure, agenda items C1 through C7. Mr. Gilberto.
Yes.
Mr. Arnold.
Yes.
Ms. Chambers.
Yes.
Ms. Chicarelli.
Yes.
Ms. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Ryan.
Yes.
And Ms. Weber.
Yes.
Agenda items pass 7-0.
Excellent. Policy. There's nothing for policy?
Nothing.
Oh,
Nothing.
Okay, perfect, very good. We have our second opportunity for, oh no, we have to do board business, I apologize. Any additional or new or old board business that we need to talk about? If anybody wants to bring up the dialogue about the security any further? I know we didn't totally vet it out yet, but is there anything pressing on anybody's mind? Too tired. I hear that.
Salty brain.
I'll make one comment,
Okay, thank you.
because I know we were, regarding the activity fee,
The one we just passed?
the one we just passed. No,
When you agreed.
but, I mean, we discussed so many options.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one of the options, one of the things we discussed is there are so many kids who are three-season sports and get so much out of it. And those, or three-season sports or two-season sports, and the sports are very, very expensive. And costing that out and try to make it, try to take, so that kids are paying their fair share if they're involved in sports that are very, very expensive and much more than, say, the chess club, okay? And the chess club pays $150 and the three-season sport guy pays $350. And we're looking at that. This was this measure, we wanted to pass this activity fee quickly just to start this year to get the ball rolling. But we anticipate throughout the year trying to make it more use-based. And in this process, I spoke a lot with Lata, and she was very, she opened my eyes on quite a bit. So listen, there's more people than you realize that have financial hardships. So we better tread lightly and we better be careful. And it's a good point, and you echo it today. And I just want to, we will be very sensitive to that in further discussions.
Go ahead, Mary, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to mention that when we do secure and finalize a date for the meeting with the chiefs, can we make sure that we shout it to the rooftops and maybe decide on changing a venue if we need to? I just think it's really important that we let everyone know that this is what we're going to be talking about, and I think it affects everybody.
That's a well-attended public meeting, you mean?
Yeah.
Yep.
Excellent. Any additional board business? We have our second opportunity for public commentary, which also welcomes any compliments. No? Just throwing it out there. We do have an executive session if you would all not run out the door. I don't anticipate it being long. Action will not be taken. So I make a motion to close the public session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. If you could all just, first one in the room gets a chair.